If I were to ask you, what is the greatest invention of mankind, what would your answer be? You have many choices. Would it be fire because it gives us heat, protection, and the ability to cook our food? Or maybe you would choose the wheel because it is the driving force behind the beginning of trade and travel. Both are for the benefit of humanity, but we forget what is really important: money. But unlike other great inventions of man, it is not material, so it shouldn't be lumped in with other inventions. Things like fire in the wheel are tangible things, but money is not. Money is just an idea, an illusion without value. But the fact that money is an illusion in no way diminishes its importance. Before money was created, everyone tried to trade by barter. Sometimes the barter was not exactly what was wanted, or the average value was high. These goods were assigned an arbitrary value. Each trade was determined by what the parties were willing to give up in exchange for something they wanted. If I wanted shoes to wear but I was only making tents, I would have to give you a whole tent in exchange for a pair of shoes, and you can immediately see one of the biggest problems with the trading system. The asymmetry as a tent maker, having to exchange a whole living space for a simple pair of shoes, is completely ridiculous. So a standardized medium of exchange was necessary. It was very difficult for two people with mutual needs to come to an agreement. We had to wait for a double coincidence when two people needed the opposite thing. It was also very difficult and inefficient. Money was not only a medium of exchange, but also a store of value. Think of the farmer who sells tomatoes and the man who makes tents. The man who makes tents could create an entire village of real estate and trade it with anyone who needed a place to lay their head all year round and probably make money from it. But the farmer who sells tomatoes will only trade during tomato season, and it's hard to store tomatoes for a long time because they spoil so fast. So there's absolutely no way he can stay rich all year round, even if he puts as much work into his business as the tent maker. So you have to choose your niche right, and in the nothing, a small group of people who were very interested in what you had to offer would leave you with nothing worth trading. And most of the people who had this advice were the ones who had things that everybody wanted, things like guns and animal skins and salt. But then, because everybody knew that everybody wanted these things, even if they didn't need them at the time, they started buying them so that they could trade with them later. And so commodity money became something that people traded goods and services for the most common products like salt or guns, and used it to trade for things that they wanted from other people. From the barter system to the money trading system, but there was still a problem with this medium of exchange. For money to have a value, it has to be scarce. The more something is available, the more its implied value decreases. This is a basic economic rule. If everybody can have something, it can't be that valuable, right? So you have to stay away from where the herd is. Things like sand or shells that you could easily pick up on any beach were not really a good measure of value. As a result, around 770 BC, the first metal coins were created in China as a kind of homage. In China, they made miniature versions of the instruments that were once considered money. They made the coins round so it was easy to reach into your pocket and take out without hurting your fingers. So that money was eventually worth something. You couldn't go to a beach somewhere and buy bronze. It was scarce. It had value then. Money was not yet an illusion. The value of a coin was determined by the value of the metal the coin was made of. If you had a coin made of 1 gram of gold, it had value and you could easily measure 1 gram of gold. But kings and rulers quickly discovered the power of money and thought that they could increase their power by cutting small metals to size. So in 600 BC, the Lydian king Aliotti founded the first official money mint. He created coins using a mixture of silver and gold and stamped an image on the coin that served as a denomination. Now people could easily recognize the value of the piece of metal in their hands just by looking at the image on it. But the haters of the world became greedier and greedier with the idea that everything was money, and precious metals were too expensive to produce more money. They started to weaken the coins and then mixed more expensive metals with cheaper metals. Soon, all the coins in circulation were worth less than the value of the image on them, and so the illusion of money was born. The value of the coin was now only what the managers in the bank said it was worth, so a pound sterling represented a kilo of silver. But when it turned to international trade, people realized that metal coins were too heavy, and so kings started issuing bond certificates for long-distance trade because these pieces of paper were stamped by the king. As the number of these bond certificates increased, people's need for coins decreased, and eventually paper reached a value where we believed in its value, even though we no longer exchanged it for physical pieces of gold and silver, until its value remained an illusion from ancient kings to modern governments and central banks. The most valuable banknote in circulation today is the 10,000 Singapore dollar. Although no longer produced, this single piece of paper, currently worth 7,345 US dollars, is still considered legal tender, so you can still use it. The banknote itself costs less than 20 cents to produce to buy things of value such as houses, cars, and even metals like gold. But the illusion of the fiat money system means that it is worth as much as 120 grams of gold. Fiat money is a fancy word we use to describe the modern age illusion that fiat money means to be made. The illusion of money is much different than you might think. Just like the kings of old, today's governments understand the power of money, and as always, they want more of it. So what they do is create more and more pieces of paper out of thin air. For example, if the US government wants $340 million, maybe for another F-22 jet, it can print money to do that, but there is a problem with this inflation. The problem with money is that in order for it to be considered valuable, it must first be a medium of exchange. The amount of money in circulation must reflect the output of goods and services produced. When more money is printed than goods and services, the state finds itself in inflation. This is why many economists are worried about the current global reserve currency, the US dollar. Most states were affected by the virus in 2020. The goods and services available fell to a mere trickle in the overall output of the economy, and the world came to a standstill for a while because there was not enough money circulating to avoid going under. The US government started printing money at a faster rate than what was printed during this period 3 years ago. It's an exorbitant figure, and because the country's production is not increasing that much, sooner or later the prices of goods and services may start to skyrocket. You can see it in the prices of commodities like lumber. It's tripled in price compared to just a year ago. There are so many restrictions around the country, and not many people going out. Especially waiters and waitresses and bosses are in a lot of trouble. Less money means less customers, less tips. If your employees are not making enough money, they will quit. It's as simple as that. If you don't have employees to help you run your business, you will go bankrupt. That's the reason why you're looking for a job in the first place. You're actually losing purchasing power for 10 years by investing in government bonds of your own country that prints the currency that you use every day. No matter what happens, banks, businesses, and individuals around the world buy these bonds and treasury bills, and the government uses all the money that it gets. And by the time it's time for the government to pay off the debt, all the money they've earned has already been spent. So they buy back all the treasury bills and bonds. Since March 2020, the Federal Reserve has bought back over $1 trillion of bonds and plans to continue doing so for the foreseeable future, with all the new money pumped into them by the government banks. Basically, every second you store your wealth in any fiat currency like the US dollar is losing value. You can look at your bank balance. And as as the day goes by, you will be able to buy less and less with what you have left. We all need to accept the fact that money is nothing but an illusion, because then the path to financial freedom will become clear. Understanding that money has no value in itself and instead only inherits the value we give, it will stop you from hoarding. Instead, using that money to acquire assets that will appreciate faster than inflation is the only way to win the game. It is to prevent total loss as more and more money is printed every day. But the dollar value of the world's assets will continue to rise. But this is all a mirage, smoke, and mirrors. A stock market only in bullish mode may look like all is well, but not all in the same currency. It's falling day by day, for example, if you express the Dow Jones, which is the performance measure of 30 major US companies in gold, in terms of gold instead of dollars, you will see that we are basically where we were in 1997. Is the gap between rich and poor going to get bigger and bigger, or are we going to solve a problem as old as humanity and not leave our financial success in the hands of those who are destroying it day by day? Subscribe and like my channel for more videos. See you in the next video.